Well, I didn't study. I'm a college dropout. I grew up in the academic world, and I thought I would be part of it, but I changed my mind in the 60s. LSD helped. And then in 1968, along with a lot of other people, I thought that we had tried to have a revolution and we had failed. So I went to India. I went to Morocco, India, ended up in Iran, and I spent 10 years in the East. And basically that was my education. As it turned out, it was my education. At the time, I thought that I was never going back to America, because I thought that America was too much of a problem, that I couldn't deal with it. But but after the Iranian Revolution, I had to leave Iran, so I spent a couple of years in England and Europe, and then finally drifted back to America. What comes to mind as most characteristic is that I still think that we had a revolution and it failed. In other words, my reading back of that period is that genuine social revolution was proposed in an incoherent way. Yes, incoherent, but real. And it was attempted in a lot of different ways, socially, politically, even militantly, if not militarily. Yes, even militarily, perhaps in some places. Actually, Italy in 1972 is almost a military situation. Oh, yeah, all that. And
you had contact to the RAF in Germany? No.
No. I was more of a hippie than a new left person. I was sympathetic to the revolution, but not very knowledgeable about it at the time. And basically, my part of it was, the hippie part, not the yippie part, or the new left part. All these different types in the 60s, the political type and the hippie type and the drug type and the art type and so forth, they all felt that they could work together. Now everyone is separated. All these groups are atomized, split apart, distracted, separated. Why? It's it's just the spirit of the times. I could just say it's the spirit of the times, or else we could.
The logic of the machines, or this machine-based systems.
Yes, that has something to do with it. I was thinking the other day about television and the automobile, and how they coexist, correspond on different levels in history. They're both machines to separate people. Yeah, the automobile starts to replace public transportation in around 1910, and by 1950, it succeeded. So there's no more public transportation in America. It was ruined. What is left is only for poor people, so it's crappy. The automobile separates each individual into an atom, a moving atom. It breaks up communities. It creates this highway suburb system that further breaks up communities actually physically. It breaks up communities economically, and it actually breaks up things physically just by separating. You can jump in your car and drive away. At the same time, you have radio and television coming in, which are instead of public entertainment, you now have also separate, atomized modes of entertainment. The television and the triumph of the automobile in about 1950 corresponds with the appearance of the commercial appearance of television in about 1950. So it really works out very nicely. And, there's just so much the human spirit can do when it's wrapped up from the moment of birth, in a technocratic sphere where meaning is transferred to the inorganic on a regular, basis in education and culture and the home and in all aspects of what we used to call the social. And in this sense, the internet is not a change; it's an intensification. You know, just as the internet and genetic manipulation, you know, bio technology. This is the next pair, the next matched pair.
Go inside.
Yeah. That actually commodify life, the interior, if you like, or life itself. Commodify the imagination instead of just the, the attention. Commodify life itself rather than, the body itself rather than just the so-called needs of the body. So each of these technocratic movements, plunges us deeper and deeper into this state of alienation. To use an old Marxist word as loosely as possible, okay, into separation might be a better term, and you can object to this as much as you like. You can weep and moan about this as much as you like, but it doesn't change the basic situation. You can go online and complain about the fact that you have to be online. You know what I mean? I know very few people. There in the 90s, there were thousands of them. Now it's hard to find them. People who are, politically enthusiastic about the internet, and who still think of it as a somehow force of liberation. These people are getting fewer and fewer. Mostly, I find when I talk to people, they're saying, "Oh, I hate this shit, but I have to do it. I have to do it. It's my job." Right? Most people are now working at this. It's their job. There's nothing liberating about that, for fuck's sake. It's over. The liberating part is over. And in 1995, I remember we all said, "This is the year of the internet. This is it. Yeah. The last year of the internet is what we meant." Because the experiment was over and the returns were in. The corporate reality had taken over. And the fact that you can still use the internet to, run an end game around the media, like happened with the torture stuff from Iraq, it doesn't seem all that significant to me. I mean, ultimately some British journalist or some, European journalist would have blown the story anyway. Whether there was an internet or not might have made a difference of a few days. So I don't see, this is people, every time something like this happens on the internet, oh, it's a great triumph for electronic freedom. Very few people believe that anymore, I think. It's just another gadget by now. But, the TAZ is also just a sociological observation.
TAZ, TAZ.
The TAZ, whatever,
TAZ.
It's a sociological observation about the way human beings behave. It's not a purely utopian concept, okay? People act that way because it's the logical way to act. If a large enough group of people, it might only be 2 or it might be thousands, but we're talking about a group from 2 to a couple thousand.
Endless.
Well, not endless, but because too big would be impossible. That would be something else again. Then we're in a different sociology. This is a sociology of the natural impulse of people when they're in a high spirits and have positive energy to remove themselves, perhaps not even in a militant way, from authority, and to live intensely, and this intensity is sometimes politically hard to define, and in different ages it might have different manifestations. But the basic sociology, the free group, and the time and place, the time and place aspect. In other words, that it's not going to last very long because it depends on high spirits.
It's no real place.
It is a real place. It must be a real place. Yeah, it has to have.
Not only in spirit.
It has to have
spirituality.
What I'm talking about is a physical time and place, not mental, not cybernetic, not imaginary. it has all those aspects possibly, but if it doesn't have the physical space, then I don't call it a zone. It's not a zone, okay? And the people who misinterpreted what I was saying to think that it had something to do with the internet were wrong.
Yeah.
The TAZ is not on the internet. Time magazine said that, actually, because of course they didn't bother to read a word I said. No. The most I ever said about the internet was that it should be should be a tool for maximizing the potential for the emergence of a TAZ. I never said that it was the TAZ. Personally, I don't get along with machines. I never have. I don't. I'm not a gadget lover. I don't drive, and that's not entirely by choice. It's partly by choice, but it's not entirely by choice. I don't have a television. I managed to get rid of television about 10 or 15 years ago, and I never missed it. I don't have a computer, and I never had a computer. Well, I had a computer for a few weeks, and then I got rid of it, and I realized this was not for me. So, physically and mentally, I'm very bad with machines. But on the other hand, I think this gives me a certain this personal problem gives me a certain insight into a larger political, sociological situation where basically I decided that I would throw in my lot with the lost, hopeless, stupid people who would never be on the internet. I thought I would stay with them. As a gesture, as a gesture of solidarity, a futile, stupid gesture, but a gesture. And maybe eventually I would discover a new network of people who were, also rejecting certain aspects of what I now consider to be a technocracy rather than just technology. That hasn't really happened. I wish I could say yes, and now there are, a solidarity network of tens of thousands of people who, refuse cars and refuse computers, and but no, I don't. I'm completely isolated. I'm completely isolated because the other people who don't have computers are poor peasants. I'm not in touch with any poor peasants.
But you are living also as a second part, or a part of your personality is living on the internet. So you are an icon of the net, a myth of the net.
Yeah.
How are you living with this?
I know. Well,
it's also physically.
It's a strange little accident of history. Has part of it. When I brought out the book, and I had a few things to say in the book about the internet, very few really. And I put the book under an anti-copyright, Remember the anti-copyright. And somehow the book became a little mascot of the early hackers, back in the BBS days of the internet, the crude early pioneer days of the internet. So for some reason my work has always been there, and I guess it always will be there because there's no way to erase it, In fact, the original message was, this is anti-copyright, but if you use anything, please tell me. Well, of course, most people don't. Some people wrote fake material and put it on the internet under my name. Wow. I can't stop them. How am I supposed to stop them? There's nothing I can. Nothing I can do about it. So I never tried to do anything about it. I hate this way in which the internet sucks you into these corpse-like, like this corpse fight. Fight between two corpses. I'm not interested in fighting with these cyber spirits. I'm really, really sort of sick of symbolic discourse. I'm starting to hate it, which is a very bad position for an artist and a writer to be in, since that's what we do, is symbolic discourse. But the whole idea of discourse has become poisonous,
You mean the discourse with the neo-primitivists, like John Tzatzan and others?
Well, yes, even that. I mean, the fact is that within the anarchist or anti-authoritarian, or I don't know, whatever this world is, there's nothing going on except symbolic discourse. Nothing. Even if you want to talk about what the Unabomber did, basically it's just symbolism. So, yes, he blew up a few computer shops and killed one or two pretty awful fucking people, but it wasn't real revolutionary action. It was symbolic. It was largely symbolic, and the rest of it is just blah 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 on the internet. A real good TAZ in America would be the Burning Man Festival.
I would ask you for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually I call it a periodic autonomous zone because it happens every year. If it happened only once and lasted for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or something, I would say that was really great temporary autonomous zone. Now it happens every year, so it's a periodic autonomous zone. You get the idea? But it has to be a place and it has to be a time.
But the question is, could this room here be also a temporary autonomous zone?
That would entirely depend on what happened in the room. I can't just say, I now declare this.
But you can be alone in a room and it's a TAZ? Or
No, you see, no. Again, I look on this as a sociological fact. That means more than one person.
More than one person.
Yeah.
And so the Unabomber couldn't create a temporary autonomous zone in this cabin?
No. I mean, he could create something else. I don't know what it is, but I mean, to me, we're talking about politics. So politics means at least one other person. And in fact, there's no such thing as the isolated individual. Really, we know that. I mean, without
you try to talk.
I'm not being metaphysical here. I'm just saying this is obviously so. Not even Stirner believed in the completely isolated individual.
That guy tried to be.
He tried, but he had to talk about the union of egoists. I'm not against the man. I just think that what he did was futile and rather stupid. I don't agree with Zerzan and making him into a big hero. I sympathize with him, but I don't agree.
It's a wrong tactic?
Wrong tactic, yeah.
What he should do?
Well, that's a good question, of course. That's a very good question. And the fact that I can't answer it doesn't negate my critique, but it does weaken it, I admit. Okay? I wish I could say that I knew what to do. I mean, it's a horrible thing to say, but if there was 100,000 Unabombers, maybe we would get somewhere. It's the difference between terrorism and militant action. We've seen that terror is a very ambiguous, double-edged sword. Ever since the 1890s and the failures of all the assassinations and attentats and so forth to bring on any kind of an anarchist revolution, and over again, people like Emma Goldman had to say, "Well, we love the sinner, but we hate the sin." Yes, we have great sympathy for Leon Kolgosh, but it's really too bad that he shot the president. It was a stupid thing to do. And this has been the anarchist position, or the sensible anarchist position ever since then. That just, it's like supposing you found out who the CEO of the big evil corporation was and you went and killed that person. Would it make one bit of difference in the world? No, they just come with a new CEO. I mean, there's lots of talented people in this universe, There's no shortage of smart people who are willing to sell themselves to the devil.
But the traditional way by anarchism is this, to kill some of the leaders.
Yeah.
And to create...
Well, we were wrong.
Yeah.
We were wrong, and I think that we should have realized how wrong we were right from about 1890 onwards. But without some kind of spiritual push, I don't see how all of this resistance, all these millions of people who are angry but don't know how to do anything about it, how do they come together? What could make them into a movement, would have to be something along the lines of esprit, of kind of combination of intellect and heart, head and heart, because otherwise, otherwise it's just sentimentality. It's just a sentiment for something that we've lost, some memory of the social that disappeared around 1995 finally. So I would say that if you want my anti-pessimistic point of view, it would have to be involved somehow with spirituality.